Hi, my name is Emily, and in this video, I'll walk you through an example of how to use pointers by writing a swap function. So in this program, we want to use a separate function called swap to change the values of variables that you've declared in main. So if I have my main function here, suppose I have two integers called a and b. And we can just put some numbers in there. Let's say a has the value 7, b has the value 4. So now I want to write a separate function that main calls called swap. And the reason why we want to put this swap function in a separate function, we don't just do it in main, is because maybe our main program needs to swap the values of these variables many times. So we know that copying and pasting code is very dangerous because if I did find a bug in my swap code and I only change it one place, I'll still have bugs everywhere else. So functions allow you to reuse your code very efficiently, and any changes you make to one instance of where the function is called is made to all of the instances where you need that function. So if I wanted to implement this function in the usual way, I'd probably say that swap needs to take in two integers, let's call them x and y. So I'll have an integer x and an integer y. And you probably just want to give swap the values of a and b. So I pass a into x, the value of a. That's called passing by value. That's called passing by value because you're just grabbing the value of a and putting it into x. Same thing for b, you're grabbing the value of b, which is 4, and putting it into y. So could I just do this? Could I just swap the values of x and y? Does that actually swap the values of a and b? It doesn't, because once we exit swap, we come back to our main function and a and b are unchanged. This is because we passed by value. The copies that we gave to x and y are simply that, just copies. Whatever we do to x and y are different variables to the a and b that we actually did want to swap. So to fix this, we have to do something different. We have to pass by reference. So passing by reference means that instead of giving a copy of a and a copy of b, we actually want to give pointers to a and b. So instead of having two integer variables called x and y, we want pointers to integers. So now this is of type int star. And instead of the values 4 and 7, we now have pointers to these original values. So I pass a by reference to swap. X will have a pointer to a. So x now points to where a is stored in memory. The same thing goes for y. So if I did want to swap my values, I would actually need a third local variable that just lives in swap. Let's call it temp. And this will be an integer. Just believe me for now and you'll see why it's useful later. So to start our swap process, we need to go to x, go to where it points to, which is a, and grab a copy of the value that is stored at that location. And we want to store that into our temp. Now, our whole point is to swap the values of a and b, so we now want this 7 in a to actually be a 4. So when we're in our swap function, we need to go to y, go to where that points to, grab a copy of the value that lives there, come back, go to our variable x, go to where it points to, and replace the value there with the one that we've been holding on to, which is 4. So now a has a value of b, but we want b to have the old value of a. And luckily, we've stored that old value in this variable temp. So we grab a copy of the value stored in temp, which is 7. We go to our y, go to where it's pointing to, and replace the value there with the value in temp. So now if we exit this swap function, we can come back to our main, and our A and B have swapped values. Before A was 7, B was 4, and now they have switched. So that's how you swap values very efficiently using pointers and passing by reference. This is a handy tool that you'll use a lot in your programs because with a function, usually you can only return one value. Like maybe you might return an integer. So your function can pretty much only do one thing. But what if you wanted your function to change the values of many integers? Then you could pass the integers that you wanted them to change the values of by reference, just like we did with the swap function, and it can change its values as well as returning an int or returning any other value, like maybe the status of the function. So now you're able to use pointers to write a very simple swap function, and that will help you write a lot of other more complicated functions using pointers. So if you keep on watching, in the next video, Callum will show you how to implement this in C.